Just got a loaner bike from the dealer. Got a BMW F800ST, model year somewhere between 2007 and 2012. I can't see a date on this sucker, but anyway, it's got about 13,000 miles on it. It's a 798cc, liquid cooled, parallel twin, putting out about 85 horsepower, 63 pound-foot. It's actually running on a belt drive, oddly enough. They have some Michelin Pilot Road 3s on there, anti-lock brakes, an enormous, absolutely gargantuan exhaust on the left side. And yeah, they said it was good. That would surprise me because most people say it's better than they think it's going to be. So, and I just got off my bike, so it's a good time for comparison. I can say from the gut, when you first ride this thing, the first thing you notice is the seating position is more upright. The seat is softer. It's pretty comfortable. It's more comfortable than mine. For those of you who haven't seen the channel before, I'm on the 2015 S1000R. So not surprising that it's more comfortable. I took it on the highway, a couple of side roads. The suspension is much softer. I have mine dialed up just a little bit. The fork is very forgiving. On the highway it feels like a magic carpet ride, which is comfortable. Bumps that would rattle my teeth on the S1000R are barely perceptible on this thing. It does not appear to have the telelever suspension. Looks like it has a standard fork setup in there and some Brembo brakes. Got dual rotors and pistons in the front, and out back there's that belt drive with a single disc. So yeah, it's not bad looking. It's okay. It is buzzier. You can see the size of these weights on the handles here. Certainly buzzier on the highway. I'm not sure if these are stock. They look stock, and I'm sure it's meant to quell some of the vibrations from that parallel twin that notoriously give you a buzz. Rolls very comfortably at 90 on the freeway, 5th gear or 6th gear, revs to about 8,000 RPMs, and doesn't put out too much drama doing that. Sweet spot appears to be between 4,000 and 6,000 to 7,000 RPMs. Acceleration is not going to blow you away. Once again, 85 horsepower, 63 pound-foot, and something that's 460 or so pounds. You know, in a belt drive, it's not gonna throw you off the bike. It's got plenty of power for day-to-day use, and it's quite comfortable. It seems like it does okay in the corners, and I think someone could get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But if you're looking for something visceral, however, it's you know, much more comfortable, and I think much more capable of longer distance journeys and providing comfort.
So we're out on the F800S 2007 and 2012. As I mentioned, the initial sensation is comfort. The seat is squishier, it's wider where your ass naturally falls, and position is slightly more upright than the S1000 as well. Reach to the bars is slightly less, I would say. Starting the bike, there's a lower frequency vibration to it. You probably can't hear it in this video because my audio is not so hot. It has more of a more crude sound to it as the engine starts spinning. It doesn't have that higher pitch 4-cylinder wail that the S1000 single R has, double R I'm sure too. And you feel the vibration through the seat. It's not irritating. I don't think it would tear you out. You can feel it in the hands more so. Doing about 60 miles an hour, third gear, 5,000 RPMs. The power is very smooth. It's easy to ride. Even though power comes on best 4,000 to 7,000 RPMs, the bike takes off smoothly in first gear. Even at lower RPMs, it's very gentle, very easy to ride. Try to give you some beans if we get an opportunity. One interesting point is the gas gauge I heard in these models only goes to 50%. I assume that's because BMW at the time, whoever the engineer was or approved this system, did not think anyone would ever want to even go looking for gas with more than 50% of a tank. And so any amount above that would be irrelevant. I disagree, especially if you plan on a longer journey where you'd rather not stop, or you'd rather stop before you get started instead of wondering where to stop midway through. Especially on a bike that can do some touring. You know, planning like that sometimes comes into play more. I'll get the second gear and a little more beans here. It does take off quite well. This traffic's getting in my way. And these turn signals, we'll get on that a little later. With the engine, once again 5,000 RPMs in its sweet spot, the noise, the stock noise at least, or the condition of this bike, it's hard to say what factors are involved. I would say it's a buzzing noise that is less satisfying than the S1000R, and people even complain about that bike being buzzy. I'm completely biased, so I have no complaints. Let's try to get ahead of these guys, because I can't take off because I'm running to the back of these people. It's nice and narrow. Hopefully I can squeeze through here. There we go, someone's fixing their hair. Let's give it a little bit of juice. There's red line in first, 57 miles an hour. Red line in second, 87 miles an hour. And red line in third, about 100. The bike does take off. Plenty of power. In a scenario where you're trying to take off from a red light, if someone's coming up on your rear wheel too quickly, it goes without saying that it doesn't have that hammer punch that the S1000 has, even in road mode, which is the limitation of my standard bike. It's just a different sensation altogether. Getting onto the ride quality of this bike is much better, it's much smoother. I'm really not feeling some of those sharp, abrupt hits that I get on the S1000R. Mine is tweaked a little bit, so it, to optimize it in corners, I'd rather have it that way, and instead it's settled in corners and deal with the bumps and the straightaways. So mine is compromised to some degree, just with stock suspension, with the settings turned up a little bit. But this bike is, once again, magic carpet kind of ride. You really feel that front wheel just sort of wafting over bumps. I'm not doing any hard stops, so I can't say how much dive is there. Turning radius, much better than the S1000. I don't think that's any surprise. It's, I did notice it for the first time when I was turning into my garage and actually turning out of the dealership. It's something that you get used to on a bike and you sort of plan around it without thinking about it. It's kind of like shifting. It's something you do every day. It's not a downside if a bike's turning radius isn't that great in parking lots, but it is an added convenience. Some people have different sensitivities to things like that. The mirrors are good. They're functional. You can see behind you quite well, especially if you have to give them a little bit of an adjustment. The initial throttle on when you're changing gears is where you really feel the different power delivery. Softer, smoother, less abrupt, less invigorating. Really depends on what you want. Feels like plastic coverings on this tank here. I think the major theme of this bike is pleasant. It's very pleasant to ride around in, very comfortable, very predictable. It doesn't bite you in terms of its reactions, its suspension, its engine. It isn't terribly loud. Now, one major problem here that I have with this bike is the turn indicators. There's a left turn indicator under the left bar and a right turn indicator under the right bar. Not that that in itself causes problems, but it's the cancellation switches that really bother me. Not the camera can pick this up, but this thing here is the cancellation switch. And that one is used to cancel both sides. So if I push that to the left, it cancels the left blinker. If I push to the right, it cancels the right blinker. Now when you're trying to work your throttle, and if you're in traffic on the highway and you're moving that right hand, that throttle hand, more than you have to, I find that disrupting. I think protecting the throttle hand as much as you can is a general good idea for safety. And the button, whether it be it's not broken in or it needs to be lubed, you gotta give it a lot of force to actually get the cancellation. Not that a small child couldn't do it, but just more than you'd predict. Wind protection on this, much more wind protection than you get on the S1000 or the Yamaha FZ07. Obviously they're both naked bikes, not a big surprise there. If you dip your head down a little bit, you have an impressive amount of protection from the wind, even over the helmet, which I didn't anticipate. But this bike would be very comfortable for a longer journey. Put some panniers on here. I think a passenger would be much more comfortable on this as well, just given the shape and the size of the seat. I don't know about their leg positioning, but I think more thought goes into that department, designing a bike with these intentions. It picks up the speed pretty well, and it's quite willing to do it. Once again, the sound and the vibration is less than encouraging, but I often don't like when people seem to criticize a motorcycle because it's different in terms of sensation from their own. You kind of have to live with it for several days, I think, and get used to it. And people are so biased after they spend money on something as well, and they want to protect that, and so if something's different from that, I think there is at least an unconscious drive to proclaim dislike from something different from that of which they own. In other words, this is subjective. I would like to take on some tighter twisty roads, because these really aren't adequate to check out the suspension. There's a nice quick braking maneuver here, or less than quick. So brakes are good. The feel is much softer. No, I'm not in the mood, because we will clear you. The levers, both levers, the clutch lever is much lighter than the S1000, very light. And same with the right brake lever as well, front brake lever. And a softer feeling to the rear brake as well. Once again, how much of that is due to the age of multiple components and how much of that is inherent, it's unknown to me, although I would expect this bike to have softer responses. Given its intended purpose. But once again, it's very pleasant. You know, the bike stops, and it seems to stop quite well. When it comes to bikes being buzzy or having vibrations, I think the most important factor is how sensitive you are to the vibrations and what you've owned previously. If you owned a very buzzy bike and you get on something like this, it's probably going to feel very smooth to you. If you own something that was sewing machine smooth and you get on this, you're going to be offended by it. And I think that's something that's more long-lasting in terms of impressions, because it's all about what we've experienced in the past and what your spectrum of acceptability is. And that's all something that's very personal and based upon experience. It's also based upon, you know, sensitivities that people have to getting numb hands, for example, or just to being distracted by things like that. See, I just turned the blinker on and I was reluctant to do it. Hand still on the throttle, I had to hold the throttle in position and reach over and cancel this thing. That's shitty. I don't know, maybe my technique would improve with time. So I'm not going to prolong this much further here. Just a very quick review, first impression for anybody who's looking to pick up one of these used. I think, you know, the F800, and they still sell these things new, but I think they've been updated from this model. Sometimes it's nice to see a predecessor if you're looking for something that's been updated. But overall, it's a very pleasant bike. Also seems to be very flexible. Look at that guy looking for a ride. Let me just adjust my balls before I thank you for the long ride. If there's any way to avoid getting picked up as a hitchhiker is adjusting your balls on the side of the road. So you see this phenomena with this bike that you see in other bikes with soft suspension, is that if you're in an area where the road is particularly rough or bumpy, you have more confidence that it won't be as jarring or as abrupt a disruption if you hit a bump. And therefore you tend to move around a bit more quickly on bad streets.